Coming up on Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Elena Pinto this week, the U.S. Congress continues to ignore the cannabis issue. They are more focused on a federal ban on hemp, a product they created and defined in the Farm Bill of 2018. Now, that hemp industry is exploding and the licensed and regulated cannabis industry is imploding. Can both sides come up with a united front for products from the same plant?
You're coming up with the term. This is a cannabinoid plant. This is not marijuana versus hemp. Accurate?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you can think of hemp as a strain of cannabis. It's the same genus.
Pressure builds in Texas for their governor, Greg Abbott, to veto the hemp ban bill in his state, while his lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, a.k.a. Beetlejuice, becomes public enemy number one.
We're talking probably close to $1 million, if not more, in lobbying money spent with lobbyists with direct ties and people with direct ties to the lieutenant governor.
And a poll of sports fans concludes that sponsorships by cannabinoid products is okay with them in all of the professional leagues. And a special exclusive interview with one of the most respected and influential women in the cannabis world, Jamie Pearson, just back from moderating a panel at the Benzinga Conference in Chicago.
What are the lessons learned from Germany that perhaps the U.S. could mimic or learn from?
I know this is going to be controversial, but I personally think what Germany got right was they allow home grow.
All that and state-by-state cannabis reports on Cannabis Coast to Coast News with Elena Pinto next.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cannabis Coast to Coast News, WPCM TV's weekly roundup of the fight to end cannabis prohibition. I'm Elena Pinto. It's that time again to remind you to download the PCM Space TV app available at Google Play and the App Store free of charge. The app is where you will find this program posted first thing on Monday mornings, plus documentation of the last 4 years in cannabis news. You can scan the QR code on the screen. It will take you where you need to go to download it. Just make sure you search for it with the space between PCM and TV. First up, the battle to ban THC-infused products is heating up from Congress in Washington, D.C. to Texas and in California. And now, this week, the focus will be on Ohio. That is where Kerry Hinkle explains more in his weekly hemp report.
Hi, everyone. This is Kerry Hinkle with Bayou City Hemp, and this is my hemp report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. This week, we head to the Buckeye State, where for years now there has been an ongoing debate on how to regulate where and what types of hemp products can be sold. Governor DeWine of Ohio has for years publicly lambasted products like Delta 8. Reports on the ground have been that he had passed billboards on the side of the road and was like, what the hell are these products doing being sold here? These products should only be sold in dispensaries. And so similar bills have been making their way through the legislature that have continually failed in the past years, but this year, Senate Bill 56 has momentum. This bill would restrict products that have more than 2 milligrams of THC per package and 0.5 milligram of THC per serving to regulated marijuana dispensaries. Now, there is an interesting carve-out in the bill that would allow for 5 milligram beverages to continue to be sold in outlets like grocery stores, gas stations, and liquor stores. So this would realistically put beverages in similar fashions to be sold as alcohol while taking all other form factors like edibles, THCA flower, and tinctures, and being those products would be then required to be sold in the regulated marijuana dispensary market. Opponents of the bill say the milligram limits go too far, and even traditional products like a full spectrum CBD tincture will have more THC than 2 milligrams in the entire package. So now, again, similar efforts had died in past years, but there has been change in Senate and House leadership in recent months that indicate that this bill has more teeth to it now more than ever. Now, all eyes in the Buckeye State around hemp will head to the legislature on Wednesday at 11 a.m., where there is a committee vote in the Judiciary Committee. If this bill moves out of the Judiciary Committee, we expect it to pass the full House and Senate and head to the governor's desk. So we have reports on the ground of folks working, the members of that committee, to try and either amend or kill that bill in the committee this Wednesday. So we will know more on the future of hemp in the Buckeye State probably by Wednesday afternoon. So we will keep an eye out, and I will be sure to report back again next week. I'm Kerry Hinkle with Bayou City Hemp, and this was my report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. We'll see you next week.
One guy we know who will be right in the middle of that is Cannabis Coast to Coast News contributor Tim Johnson. He is a former law enforcement veteran whose company is Cannabis Safety First. And this week, Tim was honored by Medical Dispensary Mavuno of Ohio with their Activist of the Year award. WPCM TV co-founder Jimmy Young talked with Tim last week, and he explains why nothing is easy in the State House of Ohio, or for that matter, in any state.
Isn't there a way to make it work for everybody? Isn't the pie big enough, Tim?
It certainly is, Jimmy. And it comes down to, I'll say, political ignorance. In the Ohio Revised Code, for our medical program, it's 3796 chapter. And for the adult choice program, it's 3780 chapter. We have another chapter for hemp. We use the word hemp. We use cannabis. We use marijuana. I've talked with several legislators. I've introduced, bills to say, we can put all of this in one chapter, and it can be 3796 chapter A, and then chapter B, and then chapter C, however you want to do it. That can be done. Is it difficult? No, it's not difficult. You just got to put our legislative service attorneys, put them together and get it done. That can be done very, easily, and we can get down instead of, people, you go to the courts or stuff now, or even in legislation, somebody says marijuana, somebody says cannabis, you got a legislator raising their hand. What's the difference between the two? What's going on? They don't know. So we got to get down to just, we got cannabis and we got hemp. Then we got these three chapters under one chapter, right. Sub-chapters under one chapter, and it's good. For me, and the lawyers and the judges that I've talked to, they said, that's a great idea, Tim. But then when you take it I go down to the State House and I bring it to the legislators. We can't do that. That's too much work. I'm like,
yeah, there you go. Too much work. And that's
what you guys are here for, is work. So let's get it done. I'll help you with it.
Can we make laziness a misdemeanor, please?
No, let's make it a felony.
All right.
That's what they're trying to do to us. So let's make it a felony.
Hi, I'm Christina Brisson with Over the Top Renovations with your weekly Ohio Cannabis Report with Cannabis Coast to Coast News. The drama here in Ohio continues as House and Senate bills push their agenda for hemp regulations and potential bans, as well as ongoing restrictions for adult use cannabis. One legal scholar is actually arguing that the Ohio Constitution may actually have some limitations on what lawmakers can do to change our voter-approved policies. Additionally, Ohio State University held a public talk where they talked about the General Assembly and their unchecked power, and again, legally, what are they allowed to do to change voter-approved cannabis reform. There's also been a continuing media outcry about how these changes are going to hurt businesses, festivals, and people. We need to continue to speak up, stand up, Ohio, and I am Christina Brisson with your weekly Ohio Cannabis Report with Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Over the past few weeks, we've continued to report on the conflict between Delta-8 hemp products and licensed adult use products also derived from the cannabis sativa plant. This all started with the Farm Bill of 2018, when Congress created a definition of hemp products that are limited to under 0.3% THC in dry weight. That opened a legal Pandora's box that created a loophole, opening the door to another billion-dollar industry. And now lawmakers in Washington, D.C. are admitting they had no clue what they were doing when they passed the bill 7 years ago. Now, the United States Congress is trying to figure out how to put the genie back in the bottle and regulate these products. Of course, the first reaction by many states is to just ban the Delta-8 or hemp-derived THC products, but now there are jobs and billions of dollars at stake. A bill banning THC hemp products outright is now on the desk of Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Many groups in Texas are protesting the bill that threatens 8,000 businesses in the Lone Star State. This week, a group of 100,000 Republican primary voters signed a petition asking Governor Abbott to veto that bill. So this is not a Democrat versus Republican issue at all. Homegrown Heroes is a CBD company in Texas where Cynthia Cabrera is the chief strategy officer. She was one of the guests on the NCIA's Voice of Cannabis podcast that will be released this week. Needless to say, this is a pretty stressful chapter in the fight to end cannabis prohibition in the state of Texas.
You're coming up with the term. This is a cannabinoid plant. This is not marijuana versus hemp. Accurate?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you can think of hemp as a strain of cannabis. It's the same genus, and there's a maybe arbitrary limit that's put in place by federal law. But I think we have a real opportunity here to move to regulate cannabinoids that are federally legal already. Hemp-derived cannabinoids. We should be moving to regulate those at the federal level, and then use that hopefully as the model to regulate all cannabinoids equally, or not equally, but based upon their risk to the user, their intended use, and appropriately, and without being agnostic to what kind of cannabis plant they were derived, these products were derived from.
And John, you're uniquely positioned with both vertically integrated entities on both sides here. And of course, having the role of being the head of the hemp committee for the NCIA helps as well. You and I talked about how can we as those who are pro cannabis plant, find a way to explain and educate to those who are making our laws and regulations how best to handle this all of a sudden huge controversy between the marijuana side and the hemp side.
Yeah, that's definitely right. I think we should consider this almost like an opportunity where I think there's a general consensus to some extent that cannabis is overregulated across the country. Regulations vary state by state. But I think there's a sense of overregulation because no one knew what to expect. So everyone went a little aggressive and probably overboard. And then with Farm Bill being passed, and people are calling it loopholes. I think they're just following the law. But regardless, it's opened itself to a whole world of wonderful cannabinoids and a lot of innovation, right?
Is there a way for Texas to show the way to get it done? But does it start with the governor's veto of that law that's on his desk right now?
Well, that would be the easiest way to start, is with a veto. Otherwise, we end up back in court. And for those who don't know, Hometown Hero, the company that I work for, filed for an injunction in 2021. And that injunction has kept the entire state of Texas in business. So for the past 4 years, almost 5 years, everyone has been operating off of the same injunction. And to pat Hometown Hero on the back, I wasn't with the company at the time, but to pat Hometown Hero on the back, and because I share the same values that they do, the injunction was not specifically just for Hometown Hero. It was broad, it was all encompassing, and it allowed everyone, including companies from California, Colorado, New York, to be able to sell their products in Texas. Getting a veto from the governor would be a great starting point. The idea, and John, you mentioned something earlier, and it kind of made me laugh a little bit because you said unregulated hemp markets. And it just makes me laugh because I have to pay somebody to stay on top of all the compliance for hemp in all the different states because it's regulated. And they're all different. None of them are the same. And it's just a massive time and money suck. But, the fight in Texas was very interesting in that the lieutenant governor, Beetlejuice, and the senator who came up with it basically said, we will not expand the medical marijuana program unless we get this ban. And all the medical marijuana operators, all three of them, one of whom has 70% of the market, that's Texas Originals, they all advocated.
Just to give you more of a feel for the passion for this cause in Texas, here's one of Homegrown Heroes videos talking about how money is behind the fight to end the hemp market in that state and where that cash is heading.
A Texas medical marijuana company bribed politicians to get rid of hemp? We're talking probably close to $1 million, if not more, in lobbying money spent with lobbyists with direct ties and people with direct ties to the lieutenant governor. Behind the scenes, we've been constantly fighting with them on the legislative sessions because they've actively been trying to get rid of the hemp industry since 2021. Around that time, hemp-derived THC became very prevalent and started to explode in growth within the state of Texas. Texas Original's revenue dropped by about 50% the subsequent year, 2022. I was told recently by an insider within the Teacup program companies that if the hemp industry was not removed from Texas, the Teacup program was going to fail, and subsequently the 3 license holders within that program were going to go bankrupt. That gives you some pretty clear understanding as to the financial motives as to what is going on here.
The alcohol industry is certainly well aware that embracing the cannabis reform effort can only help the downward trend of the public now using cannabis daily more than drinking daily. The Wine and Spirits Wholesalers Association is now coming out against the House Subcommittee's recommendation to ban all THC-infused products. The president and CEO of that organization, Francis Creighton, kept their message simple. Quote, "Prohibition of all cannabinoids is not the answer." Unquote. They do say that banning synthetic cannabinoid products does make sense for public safety. The issue of under-regulated hemp products is not just an issue in states without adult use legalization like Texas, but it also is impacting legal adult use states like California, Michigan, and even here in Massachusetts. Curtis Emery has been researching just how out of control the lack of regulations are, especially when you can now order THCA products online from a variety of sites and have them delivered to your door. Here's Curtis's Bay State Cannabis Report.
I'm Curtis Emery, a bud tender from Resonate in Worcester, Massachusetts, with the Bay State Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. On June 12th, hemp-derived THC online retailer Area 52 announced that it's expanding its features to include legal and secure nationwide shipping. This is interesting. The site takes advantage of the 2018 Farm Bill, which allows hemp as legal tender as long as it contains less than 0.03% THC. According to Area 52, their wide array of Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, and other cannabinoid products do not contain more than 0.03% THC, making them legal products to be sold all over the U.S., depending on state regulations. In Massachusetts, this offers an interesting conflict. There's legal cannabis dispensaries all over the state, which are beholden to a variety of rules, which include parameters on how to operate within the Commonwealth, within their communities, and within the regulations of the licenses from which they bought from the state. Sites like Area 52, Mood.com, and Rose Delight are able to move a variety of hemp-derived THC products with little or no oversight from the FDA regarding age gating and a variety of other rules which legal dispensaries are required to both consider and adhere to. In Massachusetts, the current omnibus bill in front of the state Senate is taking aim at hemp-derived THC products, including CBD and hemp-derived THC drinks. Large steps have been made to remove hemp-derived THC drinks from liquor stores and hemp-derived THC products from convenience stores all over the state. However, with this guidance, there have been an obvious gap in policing these rules, making it very difficult to follow through on this stance, giving an opportunity to sites like Area 52, which are not selling in any brick and mortar location, the ability to continue working within the state without adhering to the current guideline. As the states continue to consider hemp-derived THC products, it should be interesting to see how that affects retailers like Area 52. Also, in the coming months, it should be interesting to see if there is any effect between online hemp-derived THC web stores and the competition with brick and mortar legalized cannabis dispensaries across the state. Until then, I'm Curtis Emery with the Bay State Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
So, if you aren't confused about how and why these products are in under-regulated markets and regulated markets, check out Brandon Jones's report from a cannabis festival in Missouri, sponsored by a beer company.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with Be Green Distribution with the Cannabis Coast to Coast Report here from Missouri, and I'm live from Boulevardia. That's a festival here downtown put on by one of the local breweries, Boulevard. And they have tents all over. I'm actually coming to you from the Canna Village. Yes, that's right. A Canna Village in downtown Kansas City at an alcohol event. Tech 9 is getting ready to take the stage, and a little bit, lots of music going around. And yes, technically, there is no consumption allowed, but there is consumption being taken place all over this event. But I want to get to a big topic that's going on here in Missouri, and that is THCA. Yes, it's happening all over the country. Some shops have been shut down, and some have been sent a cease and desist. 16 different locations here in the state of Missouri have been sent a cease and desist to stop selling THCA flower. Now, they do have, in some cases, up to 60% of their inventory is THCA, and we're still up in the gray area as to whether they actually have any certificates of analysis or any COAs for those products or not. So that might be the gray area where some are being allowed to do this and sell it because they do have that COA to show that the product has been tested and proven to be THCA and therefore allowed to be sold in smoke shops where others might not. We're still kind of waiting to see what the actual cease and desist are written exactly. My buddy Ethan Thampy is going to be speaking out for those specific people, and he has been our show recently. So we'll see what's going to go on here with THCA. I know it is being sold all over the state at different smoke shops, gas stations, and all over. So as of now, you can buy THCA anywhere you'd like in the state of Missouri. I'm Brandon Jones with Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Be Green Distribution. Have a great week. Stay educated and medicated.
That'll do it for the A block, or first section of this week's news show. And now we will get into the international scene in Canada and across the pond to Europe. That's where we will introduce you to a new reporter from England who expands our cannabis coverage in Europe. And that still includes the editor of the Business of Cannabis, Ben Stevens. And then we have an exclusive interview with Jamie Pearson from the New Holland Group, who is one of the most influential and respected consultants in the industry, who is very familiar with what is going on in the expanding international market. Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Accounting Buds has grown into Buds Group, the same award-winning quality, now with more service offerings. Buds Group, your best buds in the biz.
Looking for PR that over-delivers on expectations? At Maverick Public Relations, they pair big agency experience with personalized attention. From launching award-winning brands to securing top-tier media hits, their data-driven communications team helps visionary leaders and entrepreneurs rise above the media noise. Maverick PR is responsive, collaborative, and relentless about results and ROI. Visit themaverickpr.com and make headlines together.